Hi, come on in. Thank you for dropping by. Tonight, I'm going to be sharing some more miracles with you. So let's get started. I've got another story for you. Another story of a miracle. My wife and I used to attend a church here in Woodbridge, and the pastor there had a heart for the needy. His heart's desire was to help people in need. I remember one time a Marine uh, had been transferred to Quantico, which is not too far from here, and he was broke. And he went to our church, not to attend it, but he went to ask for help. And he spoke to Pastor Gary and told Pastor Gary that he and his family had moved in from somewhere, probably Camp Lejeune, and they needed food and they just didn't have any money left over for food. And Pastor Gary whipped out the checkbook and gave him a check for $350. No questions asked. That's the kind of man he was. Well, he had started a kitchen, a homeless kitchen in the back of the church where the homeless could come in and there would be someone there who could cook, and the church provided food and it helped some people. But that wasn't enough for Pastor Gary. He wanted to help more. And he started praying for a home. He wanted a home for the homeless. And he said, we've got some places on the property, we can build it. And he just asked the Lord to make it happen. And this was about 1983, maybe. There was a big, one of the biggest shopping centers, malls, that's what they call them. One of the largest malls in the country was being built right behind our church. And one day the builder dropped in on Pastor Gary and told him, we're going to be clearing all the lots, all the land down here, and there's a house way down at the bottom of the hill. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath brick house, and it's in good condition, and we don't want to knock it down. If you have a need for it, if you will take it, we will move it. We will take care of all the costs and all the skill to move that house, and we will put it on a foundation that you have to provide. Gary said, we'll do it. And he got the foundation built. Actually, he had a basement put in because he could get more bedroom space down there. And they brought the house, the brick house, up from the bottom of the hill. I would say it was half a mile away. And they brought it up the hill and brought it in and set it down on the basement structure that Pastor Gary had built. And in the top window on the second floor, there was a Coca-Cola bottle had been placed in that window. And they moved that that whole house up, all the way up from the bottom up to there, and put it on the basement frame. And that glass, that Coca-Cola bottle was still in the window when they put it in place. And the pastor was happy. He got a house which ended up having something like 4 bedrooms and 2 baths, and he was just as happy as he could be. God answered another prayer. Now, this one's a real short one, but it's a healing story. And it shows you how God uses people to help us. I know a young lady who had a little mole on her leg and another mole on her shoulder. And she was a redhead, a ginger. You wouldn't know it, but I used to be ginger. When people that are blonde and or redheads, if they're out in the sun a lot in the summertime, they can get skin cancer very easily. And that's what happened to this young lady, Carol. And Carol had a very good friend named Aaron. And Aaron called Carol and said, I was praying, and the Lord told me to call you and tell you, do not put off getting those moles that you have examined by a doctor. Do it now. So Carol made an appointment with a skin doctor, and within I think it was a week, she was seen, and he went over her body, front and back, and found, I think, 3 places that looked bad. 2 of them were tested, given a biopsy, and come to find out they were malignant. They were marshalloma. Anyway, they were cancerous. And it was caught in time that there won't be any trouble. They were removed, and Carol's skin is fine. But this is a miracle because her friend Aaron, a couple 100 miles away, was praying, and the Lord spoke to Aaron and told her, talk to Carol about her skin problem. God's always watching out for us. All right, here's another story. I hope you enjoy this one. It's a fairly short one. It happened when I was about 15 years old. My mother was a single mom. My father died when I was 12. And we were living in a little house that she and Dad had purchased a few years earlier. It was a brick bungalow, about 1,000 square feet. Not a big house, but it was more than adequate for us, and I loved it. Still do. Wish I had it. One night, we were asleep. It was winter time. It was snowing outside. And my mother was awakened by a little round picture of Jesus. It was about that big around that she had nailed to the wall. And for some unknown reason, it just happened to drop off the wall and roll on the floor. It wasn't damaged, but it woke my mother up. And just about that time, she heard a noise outside. It sounded like it was right next to our house, next to the driveway. Well, she got up and came in and woke me up and told me what was going on. And I got up and I got my dad's .22 rifle. Now, I didn't have any bullets, but it made me feel braver. And so I went to the other end of the house and I went down the basement, turned on the light on the basement light, went downstairs. And just about that time, I could hear a noise of lumber being moved as someone was apparently running away. And I had a pile of lumber in the basement stairwell next to the door, and it had snowed on it. And I opened the door and I went up the steps, down the driveway, following the footprints I saw, and the footprints went right on up the street. Well, I went back in the house. I called the police, and they came. And unknown to me, the person that was running up the street was an escaped convict. At the time, there was a prison. It was Washington, D.C.'s prison, and it was called Lorton. And an inmate had broken out, and he was looking for a safe place to hide. He went up the street and pried open a window and slithered into the room of a girl who was in high school, and she screamed bloody murder. And her father came down the hallway, and that guy dived out the window. And the police were able to follow his footsteps, and they caught him. So I guess that's about the whole story. But here's the interesting thing. That little picture of Jesus had been nailed to the wall. And somehow that picture just happened to fall on the floor. And it saved my mother and I from some harm. I don't know if the men would have hurt us or not, but it wouldn't have been a good situation. But God will do everything He can to help us and to save us in most instances. Now, I was not a Christian then, and I've always questioned my mother's faith. I really don't know if she was a Christian either, but she had that picture on the wall, and we lived to tell about it. I have another short miracle to share with you. It was wintertime, and I was at the window back in our bedroom, and I was standing there looking out over the bleak countryside, the woods. We lived kind of in the woods. And as I looked at it, I was feeling a little blue. And I was thinking about how much money I owed. And I tallied it all up. And it's because I had bought a car and some other things, and it came to $35,000. And this was, around 2003, maybe 20 years ago. $35,000 was a lot of money then. And I told the Lord, I said, Lord, I'm not happy about all this debt, but I believe that you can help me take care of this debt. I need a good job. I need a well-paying job, and I'm trusting you to provide. Your word says, I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. I believe you're going to get me a job. Oh, that was another thing. I was out of work again. Anyway, so I got a job, and it was about a year later, Judy wanted to retire, and I told her, go ahead. We're in good shape. You can retire. And she worked for the government, and she got it was a $25,000 buyout, but actually she cleared $17,000. And I had already paid off most of the money that I owed, and that $17,000 cleared the debt. We were debt free 1 year later.